Hey everyone, welcome to the Soul of Sisterhood podcast with Rubi, Terra, and Allison. We look forward to sharing our story with you in this first episode here on the Soul Therapy series. Stay tuned. It'll be before Thanksgiving, so it'll be this month.
Before Thanksgiving, we have our sister Allison from Dallas who just flew into town, so we wanted to do an impromptu podcast with you guys. We're going to talk about how the Sisterhood Tribe began for us. We're going to talk about friendship and business and
healing,
especially, yes.
Hey, Marcus. I can't see.
Hi, guys.
What's up, y'all?
Okay, so... of course, I am Ruby D, the Goddess Entrepreneur and Soul Speaker. I'm the author of the Goddess Grind book series, which focuses on you becoming the best version of you in order to manifest success personally as well as professionally. I'm a chakra expert, speaker, and it's a little bit, a little bit about me. Allison, you can go ahead.
Peace and blessings, everybody. I am Allison Denise. I am a transformational and relationship coach who also does some personal finance on the side. I am the owner and CEO of Be Still and Move, the organization that is designed to show you how to heal, grow, and live beyond that relationship status by becoming better, not bitter, and enjoying your life along the journey. And in addition to being with these wonderful women, I am also 1/5 of the Bad Squad radio show, tuning in on every Friday night on Fishbowl Radio Network in the Green Stream.
You better do it. You better do it. You see how she got her life together? Listen, she knows exactly who she is and what she do. I am Terra Jackson. I am the owner and founder of Respect the Queen LLC, as well as the Sacred Space community. Transitioning into the Sacred Space community and podcast, I am an advocate and a mentor for women who have experienced childhood trauma, molestation, rape, incest. I'm a resource. I just realized that this morning.
Yes,
I am
a
resource. I am a resource to women making transitions in their life. I'm also a published author, Single in the City, as well as Manifest Your Magic, which both can be found on Amazon and Create Space. I do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I am also a mommy and a co-host of Soul Therapy Radio this coming Sunday at noon on Power 108.9. Thank you guys for joining us on this impromptu podcast live stream / Allison is here for the first time in a little bit. Yeah, we've been trying to get Allison here for listen,
at least a year.
At least a year,
yeah.
So we had to do this with you guys today because we have Allison for less than 24 hours.
Yeah, she's going back home tomorrow.
Going back, yep.
Listen, so we wanted to share our sisterhood, our lives, our professional lives, and what we have in store for you guys coming up on the Soul of Sisterhood podcast.
Yes.
Who is that? Hey, DJ Elevated 55 World Order. Thank you, brother. This brother sends me a motivational tip every morning like clockwork since our sisterhood. Remember the sisterhood what was that? When I co-hosted with you guys on Sunday. Yeah. That brother been sending me a motivational tip every morning since.
Thank you. Well, peace and blessings, and add me, Miss Allison Denise. Find me. I would love to get that. Thank you,
brother. I appreciate it so very much. So, let's get into it, ladies.
Yes. So with the Soul of Sisterhood, I felt it was important that we get a realistic view of what sisterhood is, because of course we see these movements where women come together and then 6 months, 7 months down the line, it's just like, what happened?
Right.
They not together anymore over some petty mess because somebody want to be savage and all of these other terms that are out there. And it's just like, that's not what sisterhood really looks like. Mm-hmm. And it's not all about brunches and heels and
mimosas.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not what it's about. It's really about when that sister is going through something, when she been crying and she ain't got nobody else to talk to, and she calls us and be like, hey, we need to chop it up. We need to talk about some things. And it's like actually being there and not being there in the sense where we're like, okay, what's going on with you? And let's see what outside of you we can blame it on.
Right.
It's like, you need to.
Oh, sorry, y'all.
It's all right.
We good.
We good.
All right.
But it's like we're not gonna, focus on what's outside of you that's going on. We need to know what's going on with you. And we're going to say, hey, what is it that you need to be held accountable for? What is it that you're responsible for that's contributing to what's going on?
Right.
So, with the Soul of Sisterhood, it's pretty much focusing on the actual sisterhood, not each individual, but understanding that the relationship that we have needs nurturing as well. Right. And it needs to be taken care of. It needs to be... we basically just have to be there to support each other, like really support each other. It's not always about, hey, sis, you got $30 I can borrow to next Friday. Mm-hmm. It's not always about that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's also, I think, also recognizing when there's something going on with your sister that maybe she's not communicating.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Recognizing this is how she normally behaves. Mm-hmm. Something is going on with her, knowing her well enough to recognize when she's not okay.
Right.
Like Ruby said, not just a monetary gain or not even just gain in a physical sense, but being able to nurture and be able to grow spiritually with one another, emotionally with one another, enough to know, like, Allison's not doing well. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about it. What can we do to help our sister and help her transition out of that space that she's in? I think I don't know what the hell we see online. It just is
a lie.
It's nothing but a lie. And the biggest thing about sisterhood to me is you have to make sure when you are looking for a sisterhood situation, you got to look for accountability. You got to look for, you don't want a bunch of women around you who are just going to agree with everything you do, right or wrong. You don't want a bunch of women around you who are just going to let you continue to do the same things, which are producing the same results that you say you don't want. And you're also going to want to be around people who want to challenge you to be better. Okay, yeah, I know this is what you were taught. I know that this is what you think, but let's really dig deep and find out, is this really how you want to be, or is this what you've been told you should be? Mm-hmm. And that's something that, the three of us have just had a conversation about recently. Right. And so that's something that you definitely want to look into as well, because, it can't just be we all have this type of bag, or wear red bottom shoes, or we all do this, we all do that. Yeah, but how is your mental health? How is your emotional health? How is your spiritual health? How are you helping other people? How are you helping yourself? What are you doing for self-care? Right. It's important to be around a tribe of sisters who are very adamant about making you the best you that you can be, not have the best stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's a part of what I see a lot of times with women. They want to surround themselves with other women who are so-called like-minded,
right? But
you just want me to co-sign your bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
You want someone that is gonna always agree with Tyrone ain't shit,
right?
Or Keisha wasn't really your friend, versus saying, "Hey, sis, let's look at the part that you play here, and the decisions that you've made.
Right.
Let's get honest about,
right.
You are your own problem." I think a lot of times we throw those type of women away.
We do.
We find reasons not to be their friends because they do have the ability to go, hold on, let you look in this mirror.
Yeah, because Tyrone wants shit because he was married when you met him.
Right. You
knew he wants shit.
Right. We don't want women who are going to tell us that truth. We want women that are going to co-sign.
That'll co-sign.
Or be dismissive, or not even that ain't none of my business type of stuff.
Yeah, and I'm not with that at all.
I need you to be honest with me when I'm screwing up. Tell me the truth. You can't love me if you can't tell me when I'm not being my best self.
Absolutely. I agree.
Sure can't. But real quick, a little bit of a background story about our sisterhood and how we met.
Wow.
We met on social media.
It's been a while.
All of us.
It's been a long time. I'm pretty sure it was through Facebook, Instagram, or something like that I met her, and then I met her on Facebook. And I'll let them go into it if they, want to go into it. But at the particular point where I was really building a personal relationship with Terra, and then I was starting to build one with Allison, me, I'm always about, hey, I think we can do this. I think we can get together and do this.
Collaboration.
Yes, because it was just like, these were women that I knew. I had seen them on social media all the time, and I don't want to really say hustle. They work just like I work. We have the same work ethic. I know that we all have been on our own personal healing journeys, and I've seen them grow on social media. And it's not like, I've always, hey, sis, you doing good? Hey, I see you. It's just you attract certain people. And I'm all about energy. So energetically, I was like, I gravitated towards Terra, and I gravitated towards Allison. And I'm like, you know what? Terra do this, I do this, Allison does that. And I think, we can really come together and do something. And it be bigger than, Terra moving by herself and me moving by myself and even Allison. And I'm like, wait a minute. We got something here. We really get together and do this. And then I'm like, hey, Terra, you on it? I'm all excited and everything. Hey, Allison, you on it?
Oh. Well, you know what I just thought about? Listen, I just thought about this, Allison.
What's that?
I was trying to figure out in my head how the connection came between you and Ruby, because Ruby wasn't in the Dallas Girls Hustle Harder group.
No, she wasn't.
So Allison and I met Ruby online probably five years ago now. Like that. Instagram through Artistics.
Yeah.
You were doing Artistics then. And then I met Allison through a group that I created called Dallas Girls Hustle Harder. And then so I had separate relationships with these two women. There was a disconnect between me and Allison. How in the hell, y'all? It just clicked for me. Like, wait a minute, Ruby wasn't in that group. So Spirit allowed for Ruby and Allison to cross paths and meet. I'm on the outside of that connection and just have a connection at this point in time with Ruby. So when Ruby reaches out, because me and Allison had a disconnect in our relationship, we had stopped speaking to each other for a whole year. Well, I stopped speaking to her. To tell the truth. I stopped speaking to her for a whole year. And I think it was maybe like a month or two before you reached out, Allison came up in my people you need to know. So, of course, because I am who I am, my conscience was like, you need to apologize to that sister. So I reach out to you. I apologize. She left my ass on red. We're going to tell the truth, y'all. She left me on red. She did not respond. So then, like I said, a month or two later, Ruby reaches out and says, hey, do you want to do Happy, Healthy, and Healing with me, with Allison? And I was like, Allison probably don't want to do
She sure did. And I was like,
I don't want to do.
I didn't know about that.
I think I told her, I was like, yeah, it's a great idea, but I don't think Allison would want to do that with me, because I knew that I had just reached out to her and she hadn't responded. And so, of course, Ruby being who Ruby is, damn mediator. You need to get paid for that shit. Gets us on the phone and allows us to both communicate
effectively.
This is Ruby's game right here, y'all.
Yes.
Effectively communicate my own personal issues and what was going on with me, and allowed Allison to voice her concern and what was going on with her. And it's so crazy because communication is huge, and when you don't have it, there can be breakdowns in relationships that are unnecessary, or they're misunderstood for things that don't really exist.
Right.
And so once we were able to have a conversation, it was like, whoa, that didn't have shit to do with me. Your shit didn't have anything to do with. My shit didn't have anything to do with you. It was just so happened to be two people cross paths in each other's lives at
a really bad time.
It was just a bad time. It was a bad time. So we could come full circle and actually do this. What I love the most about it is that our story will help so many women.
Yes, it will. You said 10 minutes.
Yeah. Listen, I have alarms that go off all day to remind me of positive affirmations. So this shit gonna keep going on so I get my life together. I'm so serious with y'all. Every 10 minutes, bing. Really, it's every hour, but it won't clear out until I clear it out. I think it's important. Our relationship is important for sisterhood, because so many women throw each other away that could have really done great things. Not all of them, because some of them you need to throw away.
You need to throw them away. Just start over. Yeah.
Some of them could really be salvaged with just a conversation. And it's unfortunate that we don't. I think that I am so blessed because I have been able to go back in the cracks and crevices in the dark spaces of my life and have conversations with people and confront things that most people don't get to or they're afraid to. So, listen. We a mess, but we a good mess together.
We are.
Yeah.
And one of the things that that I want to add, the biggest thing was, and I credit this to the universe. I think the universe knew that Terra and I were in a different spot. I think the universe knew, okay, no. I know Terra's heart. I know Allison's heart. They don't need to be around each other right now, but we're going to get them back together.
Right.
And like Ruby mentioned, she did see the growth. I had an old page under my government name, and then I decided it was time to change it up. I grew, and I said, okay, this is fun, and people aren't enjoying my rants, and that's great, but it's time for me to be about my business. And so I decided, instead of going through a list of 1,300 people, let's just going to start over. And whoever came over did, whoever didn't need to. And so in the process of doing that, I made it about my business. And November of last year, well, actually, I think it might have been September, October of last year, was when Ruby reached out and said, hey, I want to start doing this thing. And the first person who came up when I thought about who I wanted to do it with was you. And I just take that as a sign. And I was all for it because she was someone who saw me grow through social media. And this is something that you guys don't know, but this is my first time meeting Ruby ever. We have never met. All of you who have followed us on Soul Sunday and everything, that connection, that is all energetic. That's why we are so focused. That's why we're so passionate about energy and connection and intuition and balancing chakras. That's why we are so focused on that, because that is true in our lives. It's true. This is my first time being able to see her. And when I met her for the first time on Tuesday, it didn't feel like a first meeting.
Right.
It didn't. It just flowed.
We were sitting over there talking, hee hee ha ha ho ho, girl.
Like in minutes. And this is my first time seeing Terra, I think in 2 years.
It's been 2 years.
This is my first time seeing Terra. We just picked right back up where we left off. And so that's why we're so passionate about this. And that's why Terra and I are so transparent, because there are some women who just want to make it look like, oh, we've been close, we've been friends forever.
No.
And
A1 since day one.
A1 since that. Yeah, we ain't gonna lie. We're not.
Right. Well, friendship takes sisterhood and friendship.
Yes.
It takes work. It's like the relationship you have with a guy.
Yes.
Like, you have to be invested in growing with that person. Obviously deciding whether or not that person is worth the fight to grow with, because some people just aren't worth the fight to grow with. But when you really have a genuine connection with someone, it takes time. It takes sacrifice. It takes going up the hill and coming down the hill. And, two people are progressing and maybe one of our sisters isn't progressing. You know what I mean? And, and people at different places of their healing journey and whatnot. I think we just want to paint this pretty picture because social media requires it to look a certain way.
It ain't pretty. We done been on Zoom calls. I done seen Terra breastfeed.
Okay. All out, everything. But, I mean,
hair ain't combed, head's wrapped up.
All that.
It wasn't nothing cute about it.
Nothing
wasn't cute about it. But we got things accomplished.
We did.
It's the work getting done.
We got the work done, yes.
It wasn't no brunch. It wasn't no mimosas. It wasn't no heels.
And that's not to say that
it was that
doesn't happen in sisterhood, but that's not the meat and potatoes of sisterhood. Yes, we know how to get dressed and go out to eat and have a good time.
Actually. It was really good.
It was real good.
We had our little photo shoot and everything.
We did.
That's a piece of sisterhood, but that's not, a lot of times what you see online that's really the glue that's holding these movements together. Is the brunches, are the pretty
that
pictures.
Went away.
And if that doesn't exist, if I can't make a certain amount of money or I can't get a certain amount of followers behind this thing or recognition, then there is no movement.
Exactly.
Because
and there is no real sisterhood.
Right, because there's no, it's not built on a solid foundation of actually doing the work.
It's not.
Right. And not only that, it's not just personal with us. We all have our own businesses. We all have been, we're all full-time entrepreneurs. And that is a huge part in us, being able to continue on this particular journey, because we all have each other to lean on and to talk to. Because we all have somebody that's working a job. that we can't go talk to because they don't have that mindset that we have.
That's
Right.
And it's important, you know, even before I made the transition, hey, Terra, you know, what's
Right.
real? What's really going on?
Right, and having those honest conversations is crazy because I made the transition, and then you came shortly behind me, and then Allison. By the time Allison was ready to make the transition into entrepreneurship, we had already had years of experience to be able to give her an honest, you know, conception of what it really looks like to be in entrepreneurship and be there when you
Yes.
hit those bumps. So, girl, I don't know if I could do this.
Man, and I have hit some bumps.
Right, right,
And
right.
had I not had them, now don't get me wrong, I'm sure we all have another tribe that we've grown up with. I have a best friend that I've known since I was 5. I have good sisters, I do. But like Ruby mentioned, it's important to have people that are doing what you're doing and believe in what you're doing.
Right.
And, you know, I know that some of those in my other tribes, if they heard some of the stuff that I was dealing with, they'd be like, just go back to work. Not because they don't believe in my vision, but because they love me and they just don't want me to keep being uncomfortable.
Right.
But that's not always what you need. Sometimes you need a tribe like this that says, girl, please, that's a process. Suck it up.
Right, let's go.
Yeah, let's go. You can do
Let's
this.
go.
You stepped out. Let's look at everything. Let's not just look at the stuff that you miss and the stuff that you're afraid of. Let's look at what else is happening in totality. And a lot of times that's what you need to calm down and say, okay, shut up and keep going.
Right.
And so that's what's so beautiful about this situation, that we do have that ability. And even though I'm the newer kid on the block in terms of full-time entrepreneurship, I still have things to bring to the table because I've had that growth beforehand, and because I've had those things that I can share as well. And that's one of the greatest things about what happened with me and Terra. You know, the biggest deal is that we were both being mistreated by other people, and we were just lashing out at everybody.
Right, that energy was being transferred.
We
right.
couldn't. We didn't feel powerful in the places where we were being mistreated, so we were taking that power and putting it in other areas. And with us, it just clashed. You know, that's just simply what happened. And so when you're able to first take care of yourself, meaning get the hell out of these relationships that don't mean us no good,
right?
Then find ourselves, then get ourselves back on solid ground. It's easy to go back and say, okay, well, I know where I was. And now I'm not so selfish that I'm thinking that I was the only person going through something.
Right.
So now let me listen to this other side. Oh, well, damn, you were going through the same thing. No wonder you were mad at me. I was mad at the world too.
Right.
So it made total sense, but it came with maturity, growth, and healing. And you need those
and
three.
Accountability.
And accountability.
Accountability.
And those can't happen without the ability, you know, to forgive. Forgiveness is going to come after those things.
Right.
It's going to come after all that. And so when we're talking about full-time entrepreneurship, when we're talking about sisterhood, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, not just the pretty and the prosperous.
Right.
It's the ugly stuff. It's the stuff that y'all don't see because you don't need to see it. That is what is making a true sisterhood.
Absolutely. I love that. I was calling myself going to do a video driving in the car today on the way to come meet y'all, and for whatever reason, it was really about. I told y'all every 10 damn minutes. I am fill in the blank. I was thinking about how, and it's not necessarily what I see, but what I've came across in my 6 years online of doing business and collaborations or whatever. And a lot of times, you said something that hit me. Just because I hadn't been on the full-time entrepreneurship journey didn't mean I didn't have anything to bring to the table.
Right.
And a couple of times, matter of fact, this week, I've had a couple of sisters come to the table with just zero. Mm-hmm. You know, it's what are you bringing into this sisterhood? Mm-hmm. You know, strengths and we have to identify the weaknesses, but what are you bringing to the table? And a lot of times what I find is you'll have the one sister who appears to be doing it, and then you'll have the other ones come along the way that have nothing to bring to the table, and they're sucking that one sister, or that's one or two sisters. It's like that vampire just draining that sister of all of her resources,
and not replenishing her at all.
Trying to get to where you think she is.
Yeah,
it's a sister in Atlanta, Glam University. I can't think of her name. I seen her make a post. Somebody had commented, "Well, I never see you work with anybody on a lower level. I only see you work with all of these like mainstream people, or I call them B-list celebrities because they're not Hollywood, but definitely they're known and reputable people in the online world and sisterhood. And the sister making moves. I think her name is Sabrina. And I seen her comment back to the sister. She said, well, first of all, I can't know everybody. Like if I don't know your business exists, I can't collab with you. But in the same breath, people who have gone through this journey like I've gone through this journey, they're going to understand the grit and the grind and the hustle versus someone who is just trying to eat off my plate.
And there's a difference.
And there's a difference.
Yes, there is.
And I think that's when it comes back to what you were saying, Ruby, energy and knowing that you align with the people that you are allowing to be a part of your circle. Because you get that 1-2 wrong people in there,
it's going to mess it all up.
it's a domino effect.
It's a domino effect.
It all falls down.
It'll take the whole tribe down.
And that's one thing I like about us. With us, it's pretty much give and take. It's even. It's an even kill all across the board.
Right.
It's not like Terra has to call us and be like, look, y'all asking for too much. Y'all always calling me. Y'all always complaining. You always doing this. I need some time away. Yeah. And it's not like that with, either one of us in any direction.
Right.
And I find that to be very beneficial because each of us have our separate healing journeys, but I know what I can handle by myself, and I know what I may need to go to them for.
Right.
I don't have to go to them for every single little thing. And be like, my cell phone halfway off. I can only receive calls. We need to talk.
Right.
Girl, if you don't use that Wi-Fi till you get that money together, do what you got to do.
Do what you got to do.
It's like, hey, it ain't always off, is it?
I really wish Takira was here because Takira and I were talking about that, I think, last week, is that you got to know your tribe. You got to know your sisters. I know what Ruby has to offer and what her strengths are and what she has to give. I'm not going to call Ruby for something that only Allison can provide. She was telling me, Takira was telling me this one sister calls on her for everything and wants to talk about things that she's just not interested in because you don't know your sister. When you know yourself and you know your sister, you understand what role each one of them plays in your life. You're not supposed to be a friend in all areas of my life. You don't have those strengths in all of those areas.
That's
I might have to go to her like, Ruby, let me get the chakras together.
Okay.
I'm not coming to Allison for that. You can't help me. But then if you're not in tune with yourself, you will find yourself trying to drain Allison of things that
she ain't got.
She ain't got. She ain't got. So I think it comes back to knowing yourself, knowing your tribe, knowing what has attracted y'all, together in the first place.
Exactly.
And like
Marcus said, Marcus, Allison is in Dallas. She was in Dallas when I was in Dallas. She's still in Dallas. Motivational rap. It might be somebody you really want to link with. Marcus Parker is a poet, author, the whole nine. Really dope brother.
Nice.
Really dope brother. You Allison Denise on
Miss Allison Denise.
Miss Allison Denise on Instagram. Check her out. The petite
powerhouse.
Petite power. She is that.
And let's a little story when it comes to that name. I remember I was in Mississippi at the time because we had went home for something. Maybe it was a family reunion or something. I don't know. But Allison had reached out to us. It was in the group message. And she was like, well, this guy reached out to me and wanted to do this, and he wanted to work with me. And, well, I want to help him, but should I charge him?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
You better get your money.
I remember
that. Such and such, this and this and that. And she was like, and I knew she called herself the Petite Powerhouse. And she was like, well, I don't know what to do. I was like, look. If you don't know what to do, then why are you calling yourself the Petite Powerhouse?
Let's bring you down to size.
Real quick. Like, and Allison was like, but did you have to say it like that? Did you have to hurt my feelings? Look, I need you to understand. Look, don't be out here calling yourself something if you're scared to tell somebody.
Up to the name.
Right, you're scared to tell somebody how much you charge.
You were right.
And that they need to pay it.
You're right. And then as soon as I told the brother the fee, all of a sudden he didn't need to help.
He didn't need to help no more. I remember that. But that's challenging your sister to stand in her best self.
That's right. And
I know what she has to offer. Maybe there's times where we doubt our own selves. And I don't need a sister that's going to throw the pity party with me. You know, and then I'm
like,
still
not
with
today.
James because you the
Okay.
co-sign. No.
I don't have time for that. Pull me out. Even if I don't think I need to pull me out.
Even if what I have to say may sting a little bit.
Yeah.
It may
Yeah.
hurt a little bit. It's not my intention to, but if
Right.
it does, it probably should. You probably need to
And
feel
that's the
that.
level of
Exactly.
understanding that is missing in the sisterhood.
I agree.
Like Terra said, she not always gonna co-sign, and you have to know she's not always gonna co-sign. But you have to understand when she's coming at you and not co-signing, it's from a place of love. It's
Right.
from a place of her understanding what your worth is, and you know what your worth is, but you need her to reiterate that because somewhere you forgot.
Yeah.
And sometimes we do. Sometimes life shows up and then you start to second guess what you know. You know, in a vulnerable place, especially when you're in a new space,
Right.
In this a new transition,
Yeah.
and you haven't really walked in it long enough to really feel comfortable in it.
Exactly.
Then, of course, you have your moments of doubt or reservation that I make the right decision. And so, yeah, I'm going to need Allison or I'm going to need Ruby to remind me of how awesome and phenomenal I am without throwing me a pity party.
Right.
You know, without, you know, tears in a bucket. I don't, and then sometimes I do need to cry,
Yeah.
you know?
That's part of the
Terra
journey
done
too.
call me sometime. Ruby, I know what I'm supposed to do. I feel it. I know it. I believe it. But what you think? I'm like,
Listen.
you got it, sis. You got it.
That's the
okay,
truth.
well, I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure because such and such and this and this and that. And I'll be,
Sometimes I need to hear it.
Yes.
Like not really. I know what it is. Sometimes I need to just bounce my thoughts
Yeah.
and hear
I
what
do
they
too.
sound like from your perspective
Yeah.
and what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then usually it's like, shit, I already knew
I
that.
knew that.
right. She said that all the
I
time.
knew what she
I
was-
knew that. Dang it, I knew that too. You know what? I knew that. And I'm like, what you be calling me for? And I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I know
It's a
she need to
learned
bounce.
mechanism. I'll tell y'all why. I think it's probably the first time I've ever been vulnerable about it. When I got sober, years and years and years ago, but of course this go round as well, that's what they taught you. In order to not pick up a drink, you picked up the phone.
Okay.
To call someone.
the accountability
The accountability
partner.
piece.
Yeah.
So before you made decisions,
Yeah.
if they were, not crazy small decisions, but big decisions in your
Right.
life, business decisions, you pick up the phone. So now it's just force of habit
Makes
to
sense.
pick up the phone to call somebody and say, hey, and I know anybody.
Right.
They gotta be people with
somebody,
sound
yeah.
mind and sound reason.
You can't be no alcoholic. Call him an alcoholic.
Right. So I would call people and just need to the power of affirmation. It's very strong in my life. I'm saying, this thing is so and I've got it programmed like 111, 1122, 1111, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
all throughout the day. Positive affirmations. It's working
Really
for me.
good.
I like
It's
that.
working for me.
I like
it's working
that.
for me. So that's what that is about. I can just force the habit.
Oh.
Force the habit.
Okay, so I want to take it back just a little bit. We introduced ourselves, but we really haven't given you all like what our individual stories are because they are all different.
Yes.
Very different. I'll start with mine. You know, sometimes I feel like mine isn't as important sometimes, but then I have to remind myself it's
yes, it
yours.
is.
Yes,
it's
it
mine.
is. It
and
is important.
It's important to you, and that's what matters. Really, my backstory is, I'd say maybe it was a little over 10 years ago. I was working, I ain't gonna say who I was working for, but it's a major telephone company. Blue and white
guess.
telephone company. But I was working there as customer service, and I think around this time, maybe I had been there maybe 5 years, but at this time I was dealing with depression from working working at the job. I've always known that I wanted to own my own business. But you gotta have a job to, get out there and do whatever you do. You gotta pay bills. But I dealt with depression twice, and then I had a string of bad relationships that was just emotionally taking its toll on me. Because I'm a Scorpio. Hey, Scorpio season. My birthday Sunday. Hey, I'll be 38.
Shout out to Kira, birthday on Saturday.
Yes,
We see
happy
you,
birthday,
sis.
boo boo. But I'm an emotional person, period, because I'm a woman. But even being a Scorpio, it's just like I am extremely emotional, and that it was basically a problem in relationships that I was in. And it was just like, oh, you too this, you too emotional, blah blah blah. And I was just like, wait a minute. And as a result of that, with the job and going through that just put me in a place where I was just dealing with depression. I took some time off from work. That time I didn't opt for any type of medication or pills or anything. Went back to work, still dealing with work stress, still dealing with emotional issues and everything. And then I had to go out on leave for depression a second time. And the second time I opted for the medication. It worked, but I just felt like a zombie, and it really you're just there. And at that particular point, I was just like, this is really not the best thing for me. This is not what I want to do. I ended up going back to work, and shortly after that, I was fired. And of course, I moved on through life, but then it got to a point where I decided to relocate to a different state. And during that time, I really had a chance to get to know me and spend a lot of time by myself and get into chakras and enlightenment and all of this. And through that, I was like, oh, that was wrong with me. My chakras was just unbalanced. I ain't know how to effectively manage that stuff. Oh, that's it. Oh, okay. I got this now.
That's all I needed to do. Right. All these years. Girl, bye. If it was it sounded that simple, huh?
Okay. But pretty much, that's my backstory. And that's why I'm such an advocate.
It too, though.
I do sometimes. I still do.
You focus, and this is just an honest, transparent moment with me and my sister. I think I never had it with her, but we're gonna do it right now.
Haven't.
I think you minimize it.
I do.
I think that you focus so much on the healing piece that you don't tap into how powerful that piece is too, and how they can coexist in your message without being consumed or focused on it, because it just looks like you figured out how to get your shit together and you got your shit together, and that's it.
And that's all.
And from the outside looking in, it's like, okay, but what happened before that?
Yeah, what's the journey?
What's the journey? What's the how did you make that transition over? Because your spirit is so calm and it's so balanced and sensible, and she responds to life, and I'd be like,
wait, how do you do that?
How do you do that? I would be like I would be livid in some areas that she's not, and so I know there's a journey to get there.
I'm actually to the point where the whole Secrets of Solitude thing, that's where I'm getting into that.
I can't wait to
I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, I guess I'll do this now. That's what I'm gonna do.
Because I think it's the piece that is probably much more powerful than you recognize.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Unless you're like, I hear y'all.
Okay, next.
I'm serious. But I think you know what it is too, is that, and this is what I know about you. A lot of people do. A lot of people focus on the past. A lot of people focus on the trauma. And Ruby is definitely somebody who's like stepped outside of this box when it comes to healing.
Yes, she has.
And she's probably out there as a lone ranger in a lot of ways. And a piece of you is like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm definitely okay with that. But I think giving people insight to positive affirmation.
Try sliding it down.
Honor your gifts, your talents, your efforts, and your achievements.
Slide it down.
Efforts.
Oops.
Oh.
Yeah, next time slide it down.
See if it'll go up.
See if it'll let you stop.
I got you.
Okay, well, that's, my backstory. Who's going to go with next?
As you look at me.
Well, you are right there.
I am right here. Okay, so my backstory, as you guys can see, I am a Black woman with albinism, and so I embrace it. I love it. I enjoy it. I'm glad that, social media and technology has allowed me to connect to other people who have the same journey or a similar journey. But prior to that, I was the only person in my hometown who had it. No one was real sure, what to do or how to feel. And while I had, a pretty great upbringing, and I had both of my parents and excelled in school academically, in terms of relationships specifically with boys and then college men and then men in general, they have been kind of difficult. A lot of it has been, a lot of it was related to my appearance. And while I developed a bunch of confidence in terms of academics and being intelligent and all that other stuff, I had a deficit in terms of self-esteem, being secure and confident in who I was, and so forth and so on. And so that journey led me to, I had some great relationships, but for the most part, a lot of them have not been so great. So I was married to a really sweet man that just was not in a position in his life where he was ready to fully step into his role as husband. And, after a few years, I just asked for a separation, and he decided to try to kill me instead. And so you're looking at someone who had 3 stab wounds, was hit upside the head with a baseball bat, and teeth were knocked out, jaw was broken, 22 or 24 staples to my scalp, and, 10 days in the hospital, 2 times in ICU, 2 times in surgery, and a police officer who was told to sit outside my room and wait for an official time of death. They put me in the homicide file. They said there's no way she's going to make it. And so you wouldn't know it by looking at me, and I'm grateful for that. I wear these head wraps because I want to, not because I have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she has hair under there.
I do. And so, I was able to get through that situation. It unfortunately also happened back in 2008, 2009, when we also had the economic crisis hit. So in 1 year, I ended up in the hospital, then being laid off and having to send my son to stay with my mom and all these other things. And so, I had a rough patch there. And so about 3 years out, met a guy, thought I was in love. We seemed to be on the same page. The only caveat he had was that he had 3 kids he wanted to still, help raise in Dallas. And I was looking for a way out of Greensboro, North Carolina. And I said, well, I was thinking Charlotte, but sure, why not?
Let's see.
Let's see. So I packed me and my son up and I moved to Dallas. And without getting into that whole story, because that could be a whole podcast of its own, slide down seat. Yeah, that's what you do.
There we go.
That should stop it. So without getting into the whole long and short of that, after numerous breakups and me not knowing what I was feeling and continuing to attribute it to homesickness, because Dallas and North Carolina really are different, I realized that I was dealing with a narcissist. So I dealt with my first narcissist. I had never heard of the term, and I didn't know what the abuse was. And so in the process of getting through that, I started writing posts on Facebook, and people would inbox me and say, hey, I know you're doing this for you, but it's really helping me. Have you considered doing a blog? So I started a blog in October of 2013. And the blog was called Be Still and Move. I'll talk about that name in just a quick moment. But the universe told me that it was meant to be bigger. I just kept hearing bigger. And so in February of 2015, I turned it into an official organization. And so what I do is combine arts and empowerment. One of the things that helped pull me out of the depression that I didn't know I was in, because I'd never known what depression felt like, one of the things that pulled me out at that time was being introduced to poetry. And so as poetry continued to help me, I began to have an affinity for it. They just had a soft spot in my heart. And so I realized that a lot of women who were going through abusive situations, because I know it starts here, whether it's a physical abuse or anything, it always starts in the mind. Mm-hmm. They got to get your mind first. And so I knew that there were situations where there might be women who had not experienced something like live music or dance or a poetry scene. And so I started combining the two, and I would bring different artists representing different genres. I would have a message at the end. I've done a few in Dallas. I started doing a particular series back in North Carolina, where I'm from. And the basic gist, the be still piece, is to just finally get quiet and get real about where you are and what you really want. And the reason I find that is so important is because we can be beat down so much that we stop wanting anything, because we feel like if we can just stop wanting, we'll stop being disappointed. And so if you want to stay single, acknowledge that. If you're someone who's been told you're supposed to get married, but you don't really want to, fine. But if you're someone who does want to get married, but you keep running into these bad situations, don't get to the point where you say you don't want it anymore. That's not your truth. Your truth is that you're just tired of being discouraged.
Right.
So be honest about where it is that you want to be and what it is that you want for your life. Not the life you're supposed to have, not the life you were programmed to have, not the life that you think you're supposed to have, right, but the life that you really want to have. And the move piece is simply get the hell up and start living. I run into women who didn't want to buy a house until they got married. They didn't want to go to college until they got married. They were afraid if they were too smart, men wouldn't want them. And in some instances, I can kind of understand that part, but I'm going to move on. But, but the issue is understand that you were put here to be more than a wife and a mother. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a wife and mother, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But understand that you have been given a gift beyond motherhood and being a wife. Start acting in that gift. At the very least, how do you want your body to look? You don't have to wait for a man to go work out. You don't have to wait for a man to get your credit right. You don't have to wait for a man to do anything. Now, I'm not saying get to the I don't need a man, independent woman mindset, because that's just as destructive. But start working in finding out what your purpose is. Learn how to balance your chakras out. Learn how to find your damn voice. Learn how to be who you are, because that is going to be the best way to find the type of person that fits you. A lot of times we look for a relationship when we don't know who we are, and they're not working because you keep evolving out of what that person can give you. Mm-hmm. But if you just take the time to figure out, what do I like? What do I want? What am I meant to do? When I meet someone now, they're getting who I am. They're getting what my passion is. They're getting what I want to do, and they can step up or step off.
Step up or step off.
Step up or step off. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, because these sisters will tell you, I love my brothers. I do. But I had to get to a point not only where I love myself, but where I could also start figuring out what my gift is, what my purpose is, so that I'm not sitting around waiting to say I do. I can do something more productive. So that's my backstory.
Maybe she should have cleaned up the table.
Step off or step off.
You hear me? I am Terra Jackson, founder of Respect the Queen LLC. My journey, like, where do you start?
Right.
It's so much.
From the beginning.
I am the adult child of a former drug addict and alcoholic with a very narcissistic, abusive father. I think the first time I've ever said that, actually. My journey started a long time ago. I have experienced molestation. I have experienced incest. I have experienced rape, being depressed at a very early age. I can remember being like 15, walking into the mental health community building on my own, seeking out assistance. It's one thing I recognized about myself in the last week that I recognized about one of my children is that we are chosen, like, before we even recognize we are chosen. We are seeking out ways that don't necessarily make sense at 15 years old.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So anyhow, being 15, seeking out mental health services. By the time I was 19, hindsight is 2020, I was a full-blown alcoholic. I had chosen alcohol, drugs, and men to deal with being molested, being raped, having an incest relationship with a sibling, dealing with my mother and father being in their toxic relationship. It was a coping mechanism for me, a very destructive coping mechanism for me. I got introduced into my first treatment center, detox facility. I think I was like 21, 22 years old, somewhere along that line. I didn't have people in my life that had the ability to hold me accountable. I had people in my life that were very passive or very enabling, or they just had their own issues. They were already toxic. So to be able to identify toxic, and I know that today. I didn't know that then. I didn't even know that a couple of years ago. I understand today that they were just in their own toxic situations. I think I was 23 the first time I got sober. For a very long time. I was sober for almost 5 years. I had a multitude of deaths happen like in a 6-month time frame. Like very prominent people in my life died back to back to back to back to back. And what I know now is just not drinking, just not drugging is not enough.
Right.
Just not dating toxic men, it's not enough. You have to do the work, the internal work, the spiritual work, the emotional work, the mental work. And I was just not drinking and drugging. I was still... No, I wasn't dating initially. I waited like 2 years before I dated sober, the first go round. And what I know today is that those roads that lead us back to destructive paths, they begin before we actually really take the action.
Yeah,
they start mentally, very slowly. So I probably relapsed a year before I relapsed, if that makes sense.
I get it.
Before I had to pick up a drink again. And so when I was about 28, I picked up a drink again, and I was back to the races. By this time, I had a small child. In 2009, I thought I would leave Michigan and go somewhere else, and I would start a better life. And this is like the short, because this shit was tragic. The 20s was just horrible. I moved to Texas thinking that I would create a better life for me and my son. But what I know today, and I didn't know then, is wherever you go, there you are.
Yes.
And so it was just a very short period of time before the addict and the drunk in me found my people. I don't care where you go. If you a hoe, you're going to find hoes. If you a drug addict, you're going to find drug addicts. If you are a person who's seeking education or money, it doesn't matter. Whoever you are, you will find your tribe. You will be drawn to your people. So it's nothing to find what it is that you're looking for. So I found 6th Street in Austin. They should have never made that street in life. There's like thousands of bars. You're just like in a sea of alcohol.
She ain't lying.
It is just ridiculous.
She's just throwing them.
It's college road, alcoholic road.
Right. So I found that scene. And of course, I nosedived back into alcoholism. The difference was I didn't have the same enabling type of people around me to fix when I messed up.
Yeah.
And so trouble found me faster.
Yeah.
Than it would back home, because home was a safety net. My mother was a safety net. People enabled me. They fixed my problems.
Right.
You know, when I would screw up. And so I got arrested in 2011 for drug trafficking, organized crime, prescription fraud. I don't know what else was on the list. And I was facing 20 years in prison. I ended up doing an 18-month program. In that process, my son was with my mother. Instead of going back home, I moved to Dallas. I still wasn't ready to admit defeat. I had got thoroughly whooped, but I wasn't ready to admit defeat and go back home. I didn't feel like I had anything to go back home to. In the process of coming off papers, I birthed Respect the Queen. That's where my enlightening journey began. Just rediscovering who I was without the bad bitch persona. And Respect the Queen has been a journey. It has been a journey of rediscovering the queen that lies within all of us, but also just kind of chipping away at those broken pieces, those things that you stand on your platform and you talk and you share all of this great shit, and then you don't do it.
Right. That part.
Your platform will check you. So in the last 6 years, it's been Respect the Queen. I've done a numerous things working with women, tons of collaborations, broken pieces, finding your broken pieces in broken pieces. And where I'm at today is creating a sacred space for women to be safe enough, but vulnerable enough, comfortable enough to take off the titles and the labels and the roles and finally get really honest about who they are and where they come from, and actually discovering the lie in the story that we tell, so that you could pull that mask off. Another more layer.
Like, girl, that ain't you.
That ain't you either, because sometimes we get caught up in the story. So in my story, helping other women recognize, like I just recognized in the last 2 months that the story I had been telling about my daddy died when I was 6 and blah, that wasn't even the truth. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, he did die. Those things did happen, but that wasn't the source of dysfunction or chaos or drama or problems in my life. And so just steadily peeling back that mask, steadily peeling back those layers, but creating a space that is sacred enough, that is safe enough for women to get honest about the things that can be very difficult. And so that's kind of where that is where I'm at today, podcast community. I'm really, and I'm going to say this on live, I'm really about to shut Respect the Queen down. that's really where it's at today, because we outgrow things.
Yeah,
I
that
was
journey
gonna
has
say,
ended.
you're on to the next one.
Yeah,
on to the next one.
We outgrow and we evolve past, and that Respect the Queen saved my life. But that was 6 years ago.
Right.
It served its purpose.
You can't keep respecting the queen then stuff. You gotta go to the sacred spacing.
Right.
Time to move forward.
It's time to move forward.
Yes.
And I think that's just a testimony of life in general, that we evolve and we grow past things. And it's okay to evolve and grow past people, places, situations.
Definitely.
Yes, it is.
But we get attached to the vision. We get attached to the platform. We get attached to what it looks like to other people, and having to let go sometimes can be hard. And then we're doing the Soul of Sisterhood and Soul Therapy Radio and the Sacred Soul with Takira. So life is happening, and new things are beginning. I'm excited.
I am too.
Yay!
Yeah.
So
6 minutes.
now that y'all have, had a chance, we've had a chance to talk to you all. And y'all got to share in a very special moment. This is the first time all three of us are together, even though we've been on many Zoom calls, so many group text messages, and all of that. I've had a good time. I'm looking forward. You know what? Y'all send some energy to help Allison move up here.
Right.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Right. We trying to get Allison to go.
Yeah.
They've been trying for a year, y'all. A year.
She knows she want to come, but send y'all energy this way. Go ahead, push her on up here. But heads up. Okay, but we thank you all for tuning in with us today. Going forward, like we said, the Soul of Sisterhood podcast will be launching before Thanksgiving. We'll probably be making that announcement sometime next week. I'm trying to celebrate my birthday. I don't need nothing overshadowing that.
I know that's right.
So we will come, we'll announce that next week. So that way y'all can start subscribing to the podcast so y'all can listen in. Allison is leaving tomorrow, so definitely wish her safe travels back home. Her temporary home, because she's going to be back.
Here we go.
You can catch me and Allison, the podcast, on Soul Sunday.
Yes.
You can catch me and Terra, Soul
Therapy Radio. 12
Yes.
p.m. Sunday on Power 108.9, live on Instagram and Facebook.
Yes. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I thank y'all for tuning in. Last words, ladies, real quick.
I'm just glad to be here. I have had a wonderful time with these ladies. I have enjoyed Atlanta very much. And
She gonna be back.
and I'm going to be back. And y'all just stay tuned. Stay tuned. We got a lot of different pieces, but they all have a different function, and I guarantee you need something out of each one. So
Absolutely.
Continue to keep us on lock. Make sure you're connected to all of us.
Thank you for joining us. The Soul of Sisterhood, our impromptu podcast live stream. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Bye-bye. We thank you for tuning in to the Soul Therapy series. Be sure you check us out online at www.soultherapyradio.life and join our email list. This is Ruby D, the Soul Speaker. Peace.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.